Welcome to my channel, Keys to Literacy. My name is Jessica Henry, and it's my pleasure to have you today. So, I am Jessica, as I said before. I am a literacy specialist for over 20 years. I have taught in the regular classroom from all the grades, from preschool all the way up to high school. I have taught English language as well as English literature, but my main passion is literacy, everything literacy. And so I have also garnered experience online teaching kids internationally. I've taught English as second language, ESL. I have also taught adults as well. I have worked with the ministry to implement training for teachers where literacy is concerned, and just a whole wealth of experiences. And so I want to share on this channel with you. I'm targeting anyone who is interested in developing their child's literacy skills from the womb to as any age until they are independent. I'm targeting budding teachers, I'm targeting educators, parents, just anyone. I feel like as parents and caregivers, we need to spend more. We need to be intentional about our children's education, like more than ever. There's a lot of, misconceptions where literacy is concerned, and especially reading skills. And that is one of my passions, where reading comprehension is concerned. And so one of the things I want to do today is to bring up some reading behaviors that I've noticed in the classroom and just working with students of all ages. And I summarize that there are about 3 behaviors that are called reading. And there's one particular behavior that's where most of our students are stuck right now in the classroom. That's where they are. And they're passed as fluent readers when in truth they are not. And so I want to talk some more about this in this video. I'm only going to mention 2 of those behaviors in this video. And in consequent videos, I will look at the other 2. And out of those, there's one particular reading behavior that's where we want our children to get to. That's the achievement, But I will not tell you what it is yet. But as we go along, you will learn more about me. I do have a blog. Right now, we are doing some administrative work on the blog. As soon as the blog is up, I will share the link on that blog. You'll find also what I'm going to say in more details. You'll also find some tips and just a whole wealth of information for parents and for anyone who is interested. So welcome again to Keys to Literacy, and let's get on with it. So the first reading behavior I have observed when I was in preschool and even as a mom, and some of you will attest to that, we call it picture reading. So picture reading. So it's not really reading. It's building up a little bit of skills. It's a great foundation starter for youngsters. And so, as the name suggests, the child is reading, pretending to read text. So usually it's just a picture. It couldn't be a blank canvas like my background here. Just blank. But of course, if kids, it's going to have more colorful pictures. So it's blank. There are no texts. There are pictures. Maybe there's a pig and a goat and some other farm animals. And so the child is just going to use their imagination. They're going to tap into their experiences, their world knowledge about farms and animals. They're going to make up some words that they probably heard or, they know, depending on their age. They're going to come up with a kind of a story sense, the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, the end of the story, maybe a problem, a solution, or something like that. and they're just developing their ability to express themselves. And it is a beautiful experience to watch our children do that. Okay, so when, as listeners, as parents and caregivers, and we hear or see our children, toddlers doing that, please encourage them. It's not about being correct or incorrect. It's that they are taking risks. It's a free, they're just being creative, and so we don't want to stifle their creativity. So it's a great foundation, a great way for kids to, leap into reading, and they're going to be curious at some point and say, you know what, I want a book with words, with texts. And so one great tip I can share for this kind of reading behavior is record your child as they make up the story. Listen to them, or write it or record it, and put it in print and say, this is your story, so let's read it together. And they'll be more interested to read that story than to take a book from the library, which nothing is wrong with that, but this is their construction. This is what they have made up, and they are budding artists. So, budding authors. So encourage that behavior, and they're not too young to do that. And so we can even give fillers. We can fill in a couple words, but not too many as we listen to them. So that's a great beginner example for those who are trying to learn to read. Okay, so we can do that. So picture reading. So that's one for the younger age. My experience is that it's acceptable in pretty much preschool and maybe just the first couple of months of kindergarten, but it should not go beyond that. Okay, something is wrong if it's going beyond that. We can also use picture reading at any age, just to start a conversation, just a conversation starter. But I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to when we're trying to develop reading skills. Okay, picture reading should be just for that age. Okay, so the second reading behavior I want to highlight is called memorization or mimicking. Just like what the name says, some kids are very gifted at remembering stories. Some kids are good at making up stories. When I was younger, I was great at that, and I was convincing. So some kids are gifted with that, and you might be fooled, especially as a parent or a class teacher. You're not focusing, there's so many kids, and you hear them reading and they're fluent and they're convincing and they're bold. But what they're doing is sometimes they're mixing and matching. They're taking something from a cartoon, from a movie, from something real, and they're adding everything, and they're even pointing at the words, and they're turning the page, so they're having left to right coordination and all of those skills. Again, it's a great bridge into where we want them to be as, independent readers. It's great because what it's doing, it's building, again, their imagination. It's developing their vocabulary skills. They're thinking. They're analyzing the situation. They're remembering so many different things. So it's great, So again, don't dumb it down. But the sad thing is, I have seen a lot of students do this, and one of the reasons why they do it, it's a coping mechanism just to avoid embarrassment. So teachers who are watching, be mindful of this, parents, and that's why it's good to sit with the child and point and just make sure they're actually calling text, they're actually decoding these words, they're actually reading these words. And as we go along, we are going to talk about how we can get our children to read and everything literacy. So let me just put a plug here. If you have questions about anything literacy, I want you to leave them in the comment, and I will definitely answer or even have a video on that topic or answer those questions. So again, it's not a real reading per se, it's not reading, But what they're doing is just using it to cope through school, you know, to avoid embarrassment. I remember when I was in preschool, teaching preschool, even up to maybe kindergarten, a lot of my students during circle time, reading time, and or independent reading, they will mimic myself and other teachers, not just mimicking how we speak, or mimicking how we, children will pretend as teachers. I don't mean it in that sense. They were just reading exactly how they heard the teacher read the story. But when you go over, or you're listening keenly, you realize, oh, they're just injecting some new words, or they're just putting in their twist, which is fine. But we need to follow through, and we need to, take it to the next level. And one thing we can do is record again, or do echo reading, or what is called shared reading. So we can do those strategies to bring confidence, and let them know, hey, when I read this line, so you have two books, I read this line, echo me, point on the words, and you're going to echo the teacher. So the boy went to camp for the first time. And they're echoing what you're reading over and over, and eventually these words will become alive to them. They will be able to identify the sight words they will identify other vocabulary like boy, camp, and you can do it over and over. You can even record their voices and let them listen. You can record the actual reader's voice reading, like the parent or the teacher, and that child can be listening to it. And yes, we're going to do some videos about technology, because I can hear some of you saying, we're living in a technological age, and children are not going to this or that or whatever. But there's so many ways we can tweak this. We can use your tablet. We can point on the words on their tablet, and a lot of tablets and apps will say the word and stuff like that. So we will get into that in other videos. But those are the two that I want to highlight today: picture reading and mimic reading. Also, fun fact. So Abbott's Elementary, that's a series that's on television or on Netflix or wherever. Episode 1, there's a great example of a boy who fooled his class teacher, because he was scoring great on his, I don't know how he did it, but he was scoring in his reading, okay? And everybody thought he was reading ahead of his age or ahead of his grade. And the principal caught up with it, and she gave him a different text, a different book, a different material at the same grade level, and he was not able to read it. So children use this to go through school, and sometimes they slip through the cracks because class teachers or their parents think they're reading when they just have a great memory, and we can use that great memory further down to build their comprehension skills, because we do need that. And that's one of the comprehension skills that we need, the literacy skills that we need. So we have to be mindful that this is not reading. It is just a way to cope. Even though there are other literacy skills engaged in what they're doing, but it's a way of coping, and we need to be mindful as educators, class teachers especially, and parents, and to use it as a stepping stone. Do not dismiss it. Do not tell them to, don't limit that, don't dumb down that behavior. But we don't want that behavior either to continue, because it can hamper, okay, and prevent them from reaching where we want them to be. So thank you so much for being here for my first video. Welcome again, and thanks for watching Keys to Literacy. I hope to see you in the next video. Have a great one, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.